Okay, great. All right, good morning, everyone. We will call to order the November meeting of the Binghamton Traffic Board. It's November 14th, 2024. First item of business is approval of the minutes from the September and October board meetings. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone here today to address the board, you're welcome to come down now and take a seat at the table here. Morning. If you could just make sure your mic's on, it should be lit green. And then just state your name and address, please.
Hello.
It's good. Thank you.
Okay, because I can't hear it loud enough. My name is Tom McNamara. I reside at 13 Woodland Ave or 175 Mary Street, according to the city tax map. I'm here to address the email I received at 10:30 Tuesday evening, informing me about this meeting and its contents by my council person. And she basically responded and said that she didn't get notified for it. So I find that very odd that you're going to vote on things that directly affect my property without any openness, knowing that that's going to happen. There's going to be a vote on it today. I would like to start by, we never know who you guys are. I have to introduce myself. Who's everybody here? I know my council person.
Sure. Would you like us to go around the table
That
here?
would be nice, because when there's a council meeting, we know who the council people are, but I don't know anybody on the traffic board.
Sure. I'll start. My name is Megan Hyman. I'm chair of the traffic board in my capacity as deputy mayor. Josh, you want to go?
My name is Josh Paludi. I'm the acting commissioner of DPW.
Ryan Lake, city engineer.
Tito Martinez, assistant director of planning.
Good morning, John Ryan. I'm the Assistant Chief of Police.
Thank you.
Jennifer Yankowski, advisory member to the traffic board, Binghamton Metropolitan Transportation Study.
Councilwoman Matavetsky, 5th District.
Sergeant Moich, Binghamton Police Traffic Division.
Thank you all. I appreciate that, because last time I was here and addressed this sort of same issue, I never knew who anybody was. Does any of you live on the south side? Does anybody live up on the hill?
I live on Burlington Street, actually. I live on Burlington.
Burlington.
Yep.
So you're familiar with the street.
I am.
Has anybody on the board that's going to vote on this today driven the street all the way top to bottom?
That was actually my plow route when I was a driver.
Okay. I'm just curious if.
I also lived in that neighborhood for about 15 years.
Okay, just so we have a familiarity, because the proposal of putting a four-way stop that you're voting on today, according to the email I received, or switch the direction of the two-way stop on Woodland Ave and Mary Street, following guidance. I had asked my council person for any copies of reports or studies that have been done. What were they? What were the results? We're just going by guidance, and we're supposed to take whatever you say. I do find it very odd, as I said at the last one, that the street and the effect of the lower portion with one resident is affecting probably 500 people that live up the street on the hill. And I want to know where the clout is with this one person. They've had a city bus stop moved from in front of their house to the end of the street. It was always at the apex, so it could be seen from both ways coming. Now they park a car there, right at the bottom of the street, that's in question of the reinforced guardrail. There was some damage to that property last year, to their fence. The car hit part of the guardrail and went down the fence, I believe. as I spoke to the councilwoman, as I was pulling out of my driveway 20 minutes ago, they have a brand new fence that was installed last week. I'm curious whether the city paid for that. Does anybody have any answer to that?
No, we're responsible for the guardrail there, but anything on their private property, they've installed a fence perpendicular would not be the city.
Okay, that was a question that I was hoping that my tax dollars weren't paying for their fence, because I would assume that their homeowners would pay for it. And when you mentioned reinforced guardrail, exactly what is that?
Yeah, I think Josh can speak a little bit better, but
So that guardrail has been hit a few times now.
Yep.
When I say reinforced, it's making it safer for when it gets hit now. It's being adjusted more. It's just been hit so many times. It's kind of past its useful life. So I have a company coming in to adjust it, add new crossbars, and actually make it a little bit safer. So when people hit it, it's not as,
More pylons, is that what you mean?
it's going to look
Down there.
exactly the same. They're just adding some inserts is basically what it is.
Same type. I was just curious as to what the reinforcement was. So going back to the four-way stop, I live on one corner. My neighbor who couldn't be here lives on the other. My other neighbor who has the empty lot is here. And I don't know who the other property owner is. Kitty corner to mine. She has a hedge that sits up about 4 feet that's very close to that corner that affords lack of visibility when you're coming up Mary Street and looking down Woodland at that stop. It's a little difficult to see, but creating a four-way stop there would be ideal, except in my opinion, the traffic, the idea of this is for the winter, for the couple days of bad weather that we have, that street is slippery because the city department does an excellent job of salting it. I've never not gotten up that street. It's the people that come down too fast and go down when there hasn't been salted. And losing my train of thought here. They putting the four-way, if you're coming up that, you're going to stop there at Woodland. What's to stop them from sliding backwards? Changing the stop signs from currently being on Mary to just on Woodland would result in the same. The people on Mary Street, because there's no enforcement, and I understand the police can't be everywhere at all times, but there's no enforcement. They roll through the stop sign at Mary Street. That's where the accidents are. There was an accident last month on the other corner. Two cars got hit because one ran the stop sign. So I don't know that that's a solution. Personally, I believe it should stay the same way that it is. But I do agree. The steep road signage, there is one, it's at the apex of the hill. It's an existing one. It's useless because you've already hit the hill before you see it. Vine Street, which is up one street before mine, if there was steep road signage put there, but as I mentioned when I was here the last time and spoke, slow the speed limit down to 20 miles an hour. They fly 40 to 50 miles an hour down the hill. Why can't it be slowed to 20? It is a hill. The steep road signage, everybody that lives up the hill knows it's steep. So it may give them something if they forget, but everybody knows it is. So the slower speed limit and some kind of an enforcement, in my opinion, would be better. Let's see, those were the things that you said you were voting on. And at what point do we stop the expenditure for one individual, one house? The corner of Bayless and Park Ave, within the last 6 months, they were speeding down Morgan Road. They went into the house. The house is condemned. Is there going to be something addressed there? The traffic from the four-way, if it's proposed at my intersection, people would be going down Mary to Morgan. That section from Morgan to Park Ave is always slippery. It's slipperier than it is at the bottom of Woodland Ave. So I still, I'm all for the signage. I'm all for, reducing the speed limit, and the reinforcement of the guardrails, but the four-way, I don't think would accomplish, what the goal would be. And, thank you very much. Thanks for introducing yourselves.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good
My
morning. If
name
you could
is-
just state your name and address, please.
My name is Lucy Durlam. I'm a resident of 4 Pratt Court, and I've lived there for 43 years.
Thank you.
In order to be complete, I'm going to basically read what I have prepared. Can you hear me now? Is that
Yes.
better?
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm short. I support reinforcing the barrier located in front of the complainant's home on South Washington Street. I support posting steep road signs being installed on Woodland Avenue. I am against changing the intersection of Woodland and Mary from a two-way stop to a four-way stop. This action would represent a major deviation from the long entrenched method drivers use to get through that intersection, which increases the danger there. Plus, a four-way stop by its nature is more complicated for drivers to negotiate and thereby increases the chance of danger. As a Binghamton resident and taxpayer, I am very dismayed by the zealousness the city has exhibited in responding to one homeowner's complaint. A great amount of time and money has been spent and extreme solutions have been entertained to satisfy this homeowner. It begs the question, what is the true motivation behind this? Is it the threat of possible litigation? The magnitude of the city's response to this complaint has been vastly different from my firsthand experiences reporting traffic pattern concerns to city representatives. In the past, when a city council candidate was campaigning for office, I reported 3 dangerous traffic situations that exist in our neighborhood, and notes were taken at that point in time. This individual was subsequently elected to office, and during the many months that have passed, nothing has been done to remediate these problems. And on a prior occasion, I notified the DPW street supervisor of a very dangerous situation at the base of Mary Street and was immediately told nothing could be done. I have observed a huge disparity in how the city handles individual complaints, which is not right, nor is it fair. And in closing, I think we need to continue to keep in mind that this situation has existed since the beginning of time in that neighborhood. And this homeowner made the decision after looking at the pros and cons of that home. She made the decision to purchase that home and therefore assume that responsibility and should not expect the city and the residents of the city to turn themselves inside out in order to accommodate her. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucy, if I could just ask if you mentioned those 3 other concerns. If you would like to submit an application to the traffic board, you can either do it on the website or you can call the mayor's office directly. That will get it on the agenda. We can start the process of looking
Okay.
at them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here today for a public comment? Good morning. If you could just
Good
state your
morning.
name and address, please.
My name is Teresa Russell. I live at 170 Mary Street, and I own the vacant lot on the corner of Woodland and Mary. I just have to agree with everything that's been said so far. But as far as the intersection, well, for one thing, I didn't hear about this meeting until last night from a neighbor, which I don't think is right. And then initially I was in favor of the four-way stop, but hearing about the proposal for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, I think would be preferable. The stop might be more effective, but if the 20-mile-an-hour limit was enforced, I think that would suffice. I guess that's really all I had to say about it.
Thank you very much.
Who's got all in my district? That compared to.
Hi, my name is Richard Durham. I live at 4 Pratt Court. I just want to ask if you people had seen the car that's stuck in the house at the bottom of Morgan Road. It's been there for a number of months now. So it seems like this house at the bottom of Woodland Avenue is not a unique case. So I just want to point out that the decisions that are made concerning the house at the bottom of Woodland Avenue are probably applicable to other situations. The cars coming down Woodland Avenue, you know, it's been noted they're doing ridiculous speeds. And the same is true for Morgan Road. And virtually any other place that I drive out to my property in the town of Binghamton, and people are doing 50 miles an hour and 30-mile-an-hour zones. It's just not unusual. But the decision that's made for Woodland Avenue may be used in other cases in the future. And I just wanted to, you know, make that point. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here today for public comment?
Good morning.
Good morning. If you could
Robert
just state
Cavanaugh.
your name and
Robert Cavanaugh. I'm the City of Binghamton 3rd District Council Representative.
thank you.
Few things on the agenda. So I actually just stopped by to mention I've been getting few complaints this week about traffic signal timing between Main and Chestnut and Main and Edwards. And I thought I was a little crazy, and I was just hitting traffic at weird times, but several people have now come up and said that the timing seems to be off from what it's normally been on those signals. So I don't know if there's something's off kilter or what. That's why I stopped by. But there's I actually see I don't know if now is a good time or after the presentations on 37 North is questioning a project I have a question about. It's actually 37 North is the actual apartment or actual building.
Yes, that's the property address.
Okay, so it's a really ugly situation between 37 North and I believe it's going up. So I believe it's 39 North. They already have a weird combined driveway situation going on with like no setback. You see everything from the street. And I just looking at that, I don't know. I think giving them a bigger curb cut is just going to make the situation worse and uglier. I don't know if they essentially deserve a wider curb cut. They've ruined kind of their property already. I don't know. So I don't know what criteria are for determining that, but I would look at that one carefully. Duffy Court, not in my district, it's just over in the second district, but I assume there's accessibility issues. Possibly is that at DPW and BPD are requesting that. Again, we haven't heard that yet, but folks have parked along the street going up Duffy Court and in the circle forever. And maybe it's overused, but I think I don't know if the folks in Duffy Court have been apprised of this request or not. I assume there will be some pushback from those folks. And then those are basically my comment. Well, no, all right. I have another comment about 7 Court Street, I guess. I think the 7 Court Street situation is kind of dangerous, especially at night, with cars pulled over with their flashers on. On the other hand, the business that is generating this issue, has now, was moved in there with this business plan, with this business model, and now their customers are going to be cut off. So I have very mixed feelings about that. I have feelings in a safety and council person sense, and I have feelings as a business person in how we deal with a business that has already moved in and established, and clearly this is their business model, and we're suddenly changing parking requirements on them. So that's all.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else here today for public comment? Good morning. Thank you.
James Zervos, 74 Woodland, top of the hill. During the last meeting, we brought up the issue of the guardrail, which is in your email that I got yesterday, is being addressed, as well as Mary Street and Woodland Avenue, where there, in my opinion, I don't know if he can attest, I brought it up with John last meeting, that there are far more accidents at that intersection, personal property and personal injury and property damage at that intersection. I was a fire lieutenant for 32 years, and I responded to rollovers, many problems at that intersection where people have been hurt. It seems as though the accidents on South Washington at the guardrail happened during the winter because of knuckleheads, that I saw they put up a sign the other day, steep hill right at the apex of the hill there, the steepest part of Woodland Ave. They're addressing the issue with the guardrail. They've also put in some big white lines going north and south on Mary Street. A little bit of reflective tape on some of those poles. I brought up at the last meeting how there's numerous signs throughout the city with reflective tape from the stop sign to the ground or school crossing, chartreuse or a bright red reflective tape, similar to what's on fire trucks and police cars, and turnout gear and safety gear that people wear on the highway. In my opinion, I think that would be a good start to have that from the stop sign down to the ground, as well as a stop ahead sign going down South Washington at Morris, which is a 4-way stop sign, a 4-way intersection with stop signs. There's a stop ahead sign about 300 feet up the road. It's visible. You can see the stop sign. You can see the stop ahead sign. Mary Street going north and south, there's none of that. There's bushes. In the summertime, it's a pain in the ass with all the bushes. But I think reflective tape going up and down the poles is a cheaper solution than putting in four stop signs. Which brings me to the one-way deal at the last meeting, making Woodland one-way from the bottom up, which I don't know if that's still in the making, but it would cause the same problems for people on that lower section coming out of their driveways, going up the hill, any traffic from South Washington coming up the hill, stopping at Mary Street, going up the hill. It's going to be a problem in the wintertime. Stop ahead signs. Yeah, reflective illuminating tape, either red or chartreuse, that's all over in front of schools. There's one by number 5 when you turn, the old number 5 when you turn on to South Washington from the Parkway. Reflective signage is inexpensive and effective. So. Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Anyone else here today for public comment? Okay, so we have 4 agenda items under new business that we have to get through. Once we do that, I'll ask if we can have a motion to move Woodland up a little bit higher in the agenda for the folks that are here if they're interested in hearing the discussion on that. But for our new business items, the first item on the agenda, Duffy Court. This is a request to prohibit on-street parking on Duffy Court. Comes from the city's Department of Public Works and the Binghamton Police Department Traffic Division in an effort to address some of the challenges there related to snow removal and refuse collection due to the narrowness of the street and issues with cars parking on the street and specifically in that cul-de-sac there. So I have a letter drafted out to residents of that complex notifying them of the proposed changes. I've shared it with the property manager of the apartment complex and asked him to distribute it. I'm still waiting to hear back from him, confirmation that he will do that. But just wanted to get this on everyone's radar. Hope to hear some feedback from residents there. And I think our streets department can do follow-up. Commissioner Paludi had offered, if we don't hear back from the property manager, to make sure that residents over there are aware, give them a chance to provide input. And we can look to vote on this in December, unless there's any discussion or questions from the board now. Okay, if not, I'd look for a motion to table this to the December meeting.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll revisit that next month. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a request for a curb cut at 8 Broome Street. Applicant Stephen Kraus was here at our last meeting. He attended the public comment portion of the meeting to address the board on his request. I have some outstanding questions about both the request itself and the status of the property. There was a pending legal matter between the city and the property owner related to this specific property earlier this year. So I think the board just needs to do some due diligence and follow up both with BPD and the city attorney on the status and potential next steps if there's any sort of conflict with the application here. So this is another one, if agreeable to the board, I would like to table this to the December meeting.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? And any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll revisit that in December. Next under new business, this is a request to modify the curb and extend the existing apron at 35 North Street by 10 feet. The applicant here, Halo One Apartments, states the property is situated on a high traffic street where continuous vehicle movements make safe and efficient driveway access essential for both property occupants and the border community. The proposed extension will allow for safer and more convenient vehicle access, and in some make it safer to enter or exit the driveway. So the traffic division went out, I believe, this week to review the request, found that widening the driveway as requested would eliminate 2 on-street parking spaces and potentially create additional issues with vehicles blocking access to the widened driveway. Councilman Kavanaugh pointed out during his public comment this morning sort of the uniqueness already of the wide curb cut there with those 2 properties. Part of the traffic division's recommendation or assessment was that the existing driveway is wide enough for vehicles to access the 3-car parking lot next to the building. And for those reasons, the recommendation from the traffic division was to deny the request to further widen the driveway. Sergeant, did I relay that all accurately? Was that the assessment?
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone have, any board members or otherwise have the discussion, comments, questions on this? Okay. If not, then the recommendation from the traffic division is to deny the request to modify the curb and extend the existing apron at 37 North Street. I'd look for a motion to accept that recommendation from the traffic division and deny the request. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, our final item in new business, this is a request for no parking on the east side of Beethoven Street from Lathrop to 30 feet from the corner. So the applicant here, Mr. Swift, states, and I'm summarizing, that it's difficult for vehicles to see when making a turn onto Beethoven from Lathrop because of the on-street parking situation in the area. The traffic division went out this week to review the request. My understanding is they are recommending the city install no parking here to corner signage on both Beethoven and Lathrop Avenue in the area of this intersection, with the feeling that those changes would help with the visibility issues noted by the applicant, which were confirmed by traffic. Do I have that right, Sergeant?
Yes, and also I believe 74 Lathrop, the issue with the hedge.
Yes, yep. Yeah, so traffic also noted that some of the visibility issues in the intersection were related to some overgrown vegetation at a corner property at that intersection. So the zoning department is addressing that separately. I believe that property will be notified and cited. So that's sort of happening outside the parameters of traffic board. But the recommendation for the board today from the traffic division is to install the no parking here to corner signage on Beethoven and Lathrop. Any discussion, questions on this from the board? Okay, I would look for.
Going back to the idea of kind of getting to a place where we could just kind of systematically look at these things because they're kind of all over the place. I know residents consistently feel frustrated when they feel like their street's being targeted for these types of changes. So I don't know if we can have like some sort of group or task force to do some sort of systematic review, but it seems like this type of thing is literally all over the city. And if we could do something where we're looking at across the board, that would be help with residents' feelings of fairness.
Yeah, I think to your point at this, like currently, it's all complaint driven. So if we hear from a resident who says there are visibility issues or sightline issues because of on-street parking, and we receive the traffic board application, we'll have traffic division go out and take a look. And you're right that more often than not, it seems to be that it's confirmed and the additional signage is able to be put up. So I think part of that is just a resource issue and managing how the traffic division and the Department of Public Works that handles signage is handling these requests. But I would just say I would encourage residents, if they have an issue like this in their neighborhood, flag it for us and we can go out there and respond to it and have traffic take a look. Any other thoughts, discussions on this? Okay, I'd look then for a motion to accept the recommendation from the traffic division to install no parking here to corner signage on both Beethoven Street and Lathrop Avenue in the area of this intersection. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, so that brings us then to the second portion of the agenda, which is the traffic board determinations. As I mentioned, just giving the public comment and the residents who are here today who spoke on Woodland Avenue. If we'd consider it, I'd like us to move that Woodland Avenue item up to the first part of this agenda. If I can get a motion to reorder. Motion by Councilwoman Matavetsky. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming down today. I appreciate your time and I appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from residents on this in the months that we've been considering it. Most of you know, I think, that the board started our review and discussion of this months ago at the very beginning of the year. We heard from a lot of residents. We've had a lot of discussions here. We took some time during the warmer weather months, I think, to continue reviewing and hearing from the public. So if you'd bear with me on this, I'd like to just have the chance to give an overview of what's unfolded in those months since that application and how we got to this point today. So as I mentioned earlier this year, the traffic board received 2 separate applications from residents voicing concerns about the intersection, about accidents near the intersection of Woodland Avenue and South Washington Street. The concerns were in response to multiple car accidents involving westbound drivers on Woodland Avenue, unable to stop at the bottom of the hill during winter weather. Those accidents included incidents where vehicles collided with the private properties at the bottom of the hill on South Washington Street. I think we're all familiar with this by now, but I guess the gist of the application and the request that we received from those residents was to make Woodland Avenue a one-way, at least in the bottom portion of the road. And one of the applicants to the board wrote, my house and a bus stop are right at the bottom of Woodland Avenue on South Washington Street. The intersection is incredibly dangerous for drivers, pedestrians, and the house is at the bottom given the grade of the hill and the weather conditions. Should there be inclement weather or a brake malfunction, someone could be seriously injured or worse. She goes on to note that her property has been hit multiple times. Her neighbor's property has been hit multiple times. A one-way street would significantly reduce the risk associated with the intersection. So that's a summary of one of the applications that the traffic board received to make Woodland Avenue a one-way. So again, I want to talk a little bit about some of the steps that the board took in the months following to respond to these requests. So we polled and reviewed the accident reports from the intersection going back the last 6 years. From 2018 to present, there have been 6 reported accidents at the intersection, all of which were attributed to snow or ice, and which involved drivers who lived in that surrounding neighborhood. In late February, the board sent a letter to residents of the neighborhood notifying them of their request to make a portion of Woodland Avenue one-way. That letter shared a brief overview of the crash data that we had, the reason for the request, and requested input from residents. By the following meeting that next March, the board had received more than 30 letters, emails, and calls from residents in response. Of those, the feedback was almost even. I did a quick tally of it again this morning. 13 people were opposed, 10 people were in support of making Woodland Avenue a one-way, and then the remainder of people were somewhere in the middle where they said, yes, we think this is a really dangerous situation. We think that some level of changes need to be adopted. We don't necessarily know if a one-way is the way to go. On top of those letters and emails that we received in response from the traffic board letter, we had residents attend a traffic board meeting after follow-up from Councilwoman Matavetsky. So we also heard in person from a number of residents, and my recollection is the residents who attended that meeting a few months after, most of them were in opposition to the request to make Woodland one-way. So given the timing of the request and the public input that the board was receiving, on top of the fact that all of the incidents at the bottom of the hill were occurring in winter weather, the board used the next several warmer weather months to keep reviewing the input and options. We talked a lot with our partners at BMTS to get their input, as they're the traffic experts in the area. And we kind of weighed a number of potential changes to improve safety in the area. We also took some smaller but more immediate steps to address some of the concerns raised by residents. That included working with BC Transit to move the bus stop at the bottom of the hill several yards north. That moved it out of the area of the accidents. That was one of the things we heard from our original applicants, was that A neighbor of hers was pretty regularly waiting at the bus stop right at the bottom of the hill, and that was in the area where these accidents were occurring. So BC Transit was kind enough to work with us to move it a little bit further north and sort of out of the path of where the accidents were. DPW also replaced for us the steep grade sign on Woodland Avenue with a new sign, making it a little bit more visible to drivers, and they're working on reinforcing the existing guardrail at the bottom of Woodland Avenue in an effort to further prevent vehicles from sliding onto the private property there. So bringing us to this point and talking to BPD, the Traffic Division, Public Works, and BMTS, and hearing from many of the residents who travel Woodland Avenue on a regular basis, the general consensus from that group was that turning this one block portion of Woodland Avenue into a one-way street was not recommended as being feasible. Given the makeup of the street, even with signage making clear to vehicles traveling down, making clear the one-way change to vehicles traveling down Woodland would be incredibly difficult. The consensus that there would be was that there would be some issues with compliance and the ability to enforce that street as a one-way. We see this in other areas of the city too, where there are one-way streets that we don't always have compliance on from drivers. And those streets, many of them on the west side, are typically narrower and more naturally fitting to become a one-way. Woodland is wider, and there are no stops anywhere throughout Woodland. So we would anticipate seeing some confusion among drivers and additional safety issues potentially created by changing that portion of Woodland into a one-way. That option would also, as others have noted, have the greatest impact on the greatest number of residents in the area, changing daily travel routes for the many people who live in that neighborhood. So setting aside, just as I give this long-winded recap that I appreciate you listening to, setting aside the one-way recommendation, we received a handful of recommendations from BMTS for potential new signage in the area, and I appreciate President Matavetsky's work directly with BMTS to get some signage suggestions for us. Essentially, BMTS is recommending, the signage they're recommending on Woodland Avenue is to alert drivers to the steep grade and some of the issues there. So I'll run through this quickly. They're recommending a slippery when wet sign with ice supplemental plaque to be installed for westbound traffic on Woodland Avenue at the west side of Mary Street. This would enable motorists turning westbound onto Woodland Avenue to see the sign and should work to alert motorists of the need to slow down and brake according to weather conditions. The city can consider replacing the current location of the hill sign with the recommended signage above, or keep the signage and install a new hill sign with bright yellow signage located between the telephone pole and no parking here to corner. The additional signage can act as a reinforcing alert for the need to slow down and brake early to stop safely at the end of Woodland Avenue. And then lastly, to enhance motorists' visibility of the warning signs, the city can consider installing a duplicate sign or duplicate signs directly across Woodland Avenue, so you have them on both ways of on both sides of the roadway there. So those are some of the suggestions from BMTS that are on the table for the board to consider. In addition, separate from the intersection of Woodland and South Washington Street, but I think very much related, is the intersection of Woodland and Mary Street, which several residents spoke about here today. This intersection is one up from the bottom of the hill. So when the board did outreach on the suggestion to make Woodland Avenue one-way, we actually heard from a number of residents who pointed out this intersection as a serious problem and safety concern. Some of those residents said that they found it actually more dangerous than the area at the bottom of the hill, and that the concerns there weren't just winter weather based, but seemed to exist year round, kind of regardless of conditions. So our kind of review of Woodland Avenue and the safety concerns took us down this path where we're looking into looking at the intersection of Woodland and Mary Street. And in doing so, we found that there have been the same number of reported crashes at that intersection since 2018 as there have been at the intersection at the bottom of the hill. The difference, as far as I can tell, is that the crashes at the intersection of Mary and Woodland were tied to drivers running the stop sign at Mary, while the crashes at the bottom of the hill were not related to winter weather or an inability to, were related to winter weather and an inability to stop as a result of road conditions there. So we kind of off the bat took some measures this summer to improve the safety of that intersection. DPW, once they got done paving Mary Street, they painted stop bars for us on the street. They installed new and larger stop signs to make them more visible. But this intersection seems to be, as I said, a separate but related concern and something for the board to think about. I don't anticipate us taking any action on this Woodland and Mary Street intersection today. I think we can continue to get public comment on it as it is separate from the request to make Woodland Avenue one-way. But I wanted to kind of open that up to discussion from the board. And President Matavetsky, I know you did a lot of legwork on this, so if you'd like to start, I'd welcome you to share your
Yes.
thoughts.
First off, I want to apologize for, I should have made it clear in the email that that it was a proposal that would be raised today and that it may or may not be voted on. I think I made was a little confusing to the residents, but I was not sure whether or not movement would happen today, and I wanted to make sure that we got feedback. I would like to do more legwork. Like I said, I emailed I think it was 29 email addresses that we had from people that had contacted us about the one-way to let them know that this proposal was now being considered. And we got, I believe, 8 emails back from that email out on Tuesday. And then I did some door knocking today on that lower portion of Mary. There's a couple of older folks that are home in the morning that I was able to speak to, but I would like to do more flyering since this consideration of the four-way stop really impacts that kind of a broader area. I want to make sure that I check in with everybody. So I would definitely support taking that up at our next meeting instead of at this meeting, so we can get more feedback. Because it is a kind of a different approach.
Any other thoughts?
As we move forward, in addition to consideration regarding signage, I think it would be prudent to entertain the suggestions of Mr. Zervos insofar as making those signs more visible, in addition to whatever the traffic recommendations were as far as the posted signage, but supplementing those with higher visibility, be it tape or what options DPW could explore for some more highly visible attention grabbing signage posted there for safety's sake.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or discussion on this?
In the emails, and I distributed the emails that I received in a kind of a spreadsheet format to everyone on the traffic board, so that they could see, and I put in kind of pro, con, and additional ideas. I think the reflective tape is probably a more financially reasonable way of dealing, but people did mention flashing lights on the stop signs, things like that. So I think that's a similar concept. So there was additional kind of people bringing that forward.
I know there's a oversized stop sign. I'm not sure how traffic would approach that, or if that's something feasible for the city to explore as well. Larger than the standard size sign that we currently have or that gets issued in intersections.
I think we updated the stop signs on Mary Street currently. Are they larger than the ones before or are they?
I believe we put the oversized ones. I'll double
Okay.
check on it. That was a while back.
Okay.
As far as the reflective tape, that's something I can definitely get done
Okay.
sooner than later.
Okay, that'd be great. And I think that can kind of happen outside the bounds of, but it doesn't need traffic board approval. So
Did we consider a lighted stop sign there? So that people are really aware that they gotta stop.
on Mary
I
Street.
know up on Colesville Road, they have them at that four-way. And for the first time in years since they put that up, people approach that slowly.
Yeah.
But I like the recommendations from BMTS. And other than that, I don't think we should change anything up there. Other than what we've said we would do. In the wintertime when it's slippery, I don't think there's any easy way off that hill. Some of those other streets are just about as bad when you have to come to a stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, I just want to thank DPW too, because we heard from a lot of people, but Commissioner Polluti, I think you and your team do as good a job as anyone could be doing up there on those hills. I know you focus on them and
I
that's
will
the
be
priority.
personally overlooking Woodland all winter long this year.
Yeah, Woodland, it's a steep hill and it's a tough one, but I appreciate your attention to it. So I think we have a couple of things to consider for the intersection of Woodland and Mary at the next meeting. We can continue the conversations of if DPW could look into that reflective tape to make it more visible. There are options to have a lighted stop sign there. Someone today mentioned that there is trees or overgrowth at that four-way intersection that make it a little bit hard to see. So we can send code out too to look if there is any sort of code issue there with anything that might be blocking the stop signs or making it harder for residents to see. So I think those are all items to return to at if we can place this on the agenda for the December meeting. Today, though, I would like the board to consider voting on the recommendations for signage from BMTS so that if approved, we can get them up before hopefully the first snow falls. So I'll run through these again. BMTS is recommending a slippery when wet sign with the ice supplemental placard to be installed for westbound traffic on Woodland Avenue at the west side of the Mary Street intersection. I think we should consider their recommendation to also keep the hill sign that the city recently replaced, to keep that in the area of that same intersection, and possibly on the other side of Woodland Avenue too, so you have duplicate signage on the roadway's south side to enhance motorist visibility. So that would be, let me see, I think that would be two new pieces of signage in total that I think we should consider approving today, so we can go ahead and get those up before the winter. Any thoughts or discussion?
Just wanted to make sure that it, that all these signage pieces are being recommended as a package by BMTS, or they were individual. I just want to make sure that, like, over signage can also,
Yeah.
cause driving issues. So I just want to make sure that this is a package, not individual different ideas that are being recommended that aren't supposed to be moved as a package.
Yeah, I would say as a package.
That was my understanding too from.
I just
reading
wanted
the
to make sure
email.
that was clear and on the record.
Does it specify the braking distance further uphill from the intersection? How far back is that steep grade or hill signage?
I don't know. I don't know if there's anything in traffic code to guide that. I know that the one sign that we have now is the hill sign is right past the Mary Street intersection, where it starts to become very very steep. And that's where BMTS, is my understanding, is they're recommending the additional signage. Whether anything should be placed further up the hill there, I'm not seeing.
I'm only bringing it up because I agree with the discussion that was brought forward that the people that reside in the neighborhood know the grade of the road and what points of entry and exit. It would be presumably for people not familiar, not from that neighborhood, delivery, whatever the case may be, it would make more sense to me to have something posted further uphill, like towards Vine, that would alert a driver and give them ample braking distance before they, one, hit the intersection with Mary, and two, crossing that intersection where that grade continues and increases as you go
Yeah.
downhill.
No, I think that's a good point. Jen, if we approve the installation of this signage today, would BMTS come out with the traffic division and DPW to help us figure out where exactly the best place would be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. I think that if that's agreeable, Chief, I think that's a good point. So if everyone's kind of good with that, I don't know, any other thoughts or discussions? Okay. So then I would I'd look for a motion then to install the additional caution signage as recommended by BMTS. This includes the slippery when wet sign with ice placard, new hill signage, and the potential for the duplicate signage on both the north and south sides of the streets. And I would look for basically the board to approve the recommendation with the thought being that BMTS, the traffic division, and DPW will go out together to determine the best locations on Woodland Avenue for that signage.
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. And I would just say this will be back in a different format on our agenda next month where we look at Mary and Woodland Avenue. I would, I encourage residents to continue reaching out to us and providing your input. We will, I think we'll plan to look at that entire area and stretch of street again in 6 months to make sure that this is staying on our radar and that we're reviewing any updated accidents there, any new issues. So just please continue to reach out to us in the meantime if there are any concerns. Thank you. Okay, so we have a couple more items under traffic board determination that I think we can move on to now. And the first one is a request for to replace no parking signs with no stopping signs at 7 Court Street. So let me just get back on track here. Okay, so this was discussed at our last board meeting. This comes from the mayor's office in conjunction with the Office of Economic Development in response to complaints received regarding vehicles parking or stopping in front of the business at 7 Court Street in a no parking area. The issues here stem primarily from a new tenant in that space. It's been operating for the last several months now as a restaurant that is doing a lot of takeout orders, DoorDash orders. During busy times and really throughout the time that the business is opened, cars are stopping in that no parking zone as customers run in to pick up their orders, as DoorDash drivers run in to do the same. But in the process, they're blocking a bus lane, they're double parking in some cases and creating safety concerns in a high foot traffic area of downtown. So currently the signage that is there is just standard no parking signage. I think we'd like to see that updated to something that makes it clear that even if you're not leaving your car there for a long period of time, you shouldn't be stopping in that lane. So at our last meeting, we asked BMTS to help us determine what exactly the appropriate signage would be there to make sure it's compliant with the MUTCD and as effective as possible. BMTS looked into it for us. Thank you for that. And is recommending replacing the no parking signage with no stopping anytime signage. Any thoughts, discussions on this? Okay.
So do we have a sense of where people will do their DoorDash work from?
So they will have to park in a permitted parking space in downtown. So right now there's some on Water Street around the corner where Boss Cubs is. There'll be the ramp opening further down the road. It will be a little bit less convenient for sure for those drivers and the customers. But there's likely no other way to prevent people from kind of blocking that bus lane and pushing out into traffic there.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other thoughts or discussion? Okay, I would look then for a motion to replace the no parking signage in front of 7 Court Street with no stopping anytime signage.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our next item, request for a 4-way stop sign at the intersection of Larchmont Road and Audubon Avenue. Another one we heard at our last board meeting, the applicant states in sum that vehicles are speeding in the area, creating a dangerous situation for kids getting off the bus and other residents. So we mentioned this at our last board meeting. Generally, we know that stop signs are not to be used for speed controlling measures or as a speed controlling device. But because the applicant had mentioned there having been a number of crashes there, we looked into the crash data for the area to determine if it warranted any changes. The MTS found that there was 1 crash at the intersection from March 2021 to March 2024. That does not meet the warrant for a 4-way stop sign under the MUTCD. Because the applicant mentioned speeding as a concern in the area, we requested that BPD place the mobile speed trailer in the neighborhood as it becomes available and to monitor as their resources allow. But the recommendation at this time would be to deny the request for a 4-way stop sign at this intersection. Any comments, questions? Okay, I would look then for a motion to accept the recommendation and deny the request for a 4-way stop sign at Larchmont Road and Audubon Avenue.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, all right, so next on the agenda, a request to make the north side of Boulevard Terrace no parking. This one has been on our agenda the last couple meetings now. In September, I believe, the traffic board voted to make one side of the street no parking, following a request from a resident that was concerned with the narrowness of the street and emergency vehicle access when vehicles were parked on both sides. The traffic division went out to take a look. They confirmed that there was an issue with emergency vehicle access there, and the recommendation was to make one side of the street no parking. So the initial recommendation, I believe, was to make the south side of the street no parking based on the number of houses and the location of the fire hydrant and utility poles. But Councilman Matavetsky and Councilwoman Middleton did some additional outreach on the street to the residents there, and it seems that the preference is to keep parking on the south side of the street and make the north side of the street no parking. Is that your understanding, Councilwoman?
So the entire street was flyed, and the directions were for people to reach out to Councilwoman Middleton when they received the flyer. Every house on that street received a flyer. As far as I'm aware, the only email I've been forwarded since that flyering from Councilwoman Middleton, let me 1 second, let me make this bigger. cut off. Let me make it- Okay, I got it full size. So, and I CC'd you and, you in on it. So we got, feedback from someone other than the requester, and they recommended a sign saying parking this side only on the south side and no parking on the north side. So that we have only two people have provided feedback and both have requested no parking on the north side.
No parking on the north side. Okay.
But
And-
everyone was flyered. There's not that many houses on the street. Only two people, as far as I know, have stated any opinion at all.
Okay, and then just as in terms of the verbiage on the signage, I don't think that like we have to stick to the no parking signage rather than the parking allowed. So we'll keep it in that vein. So the request, as you understand it, is to make the north side of the street no parking.
Yes.
Okay. That was
Again,
my understanding.
everyone was contacted with a paper flyer on their door. Only two people, the original requester and this additional person that I had sent you the email, so you have your own copy of it as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for following up on that too. So I'd look for a motion then to allow parking on the south side of Boulevard Terrace and make the north side of Boulevard Terrace no parking.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. If you wouldn't mind just letting Councilman Middleton know, that would be great.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. All right. Last item here, this is a request to replace the 15-minute parking signs with no parking signs outside 29 Fayette Street. This comes from the Family Enrichment Network. The application states the change in signage is needed to prevent parked cars from obstructing buses during drop-off pickup at their Fayette Street location. There is currently signage directly in front of the building stating it's 15-minute parking Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I think keeping those hours would make sense. But changing it from 15 minutes to no parking, I would be agreeable to if the board is. I think the traffic division went out to take a look. No objections to the proposal. Okay.
For discussion's sake, that complex they're building there is quite substantial. I think I don't know if those residents, that's temporary housing, or any of those folks are going to have parking availability, or if they even have vehicles. But that should probably be considered. I don't know the total number of units, but
Is it the new development, Chief? Like,
yeah, it's primarily on the other side of the block, but
okay.
I would think there'd be a lack of parking even with what staff is gonna be there.
Okay, I think that they having had to go through the planning commission process. Do you know, Tito, did they have a parking requirement for that rehab?
They did. I believe they got a waiver of some spots, and if I recall correctly, they are leasing spaces off-site as well.
Okay.
I can get a firm answer on that if I can email after the meeting.
Okay. Okay. What would your preference be, Chief? Would you like us to try to reach out to the developer there?
Well, currently there's a parking issue there just with the construction staff that's working on that job site.
Okay.
We've had to enforce where they're parking all the way out north to the Court Street intersection. They're like along St. Mary's and so forth. We varying levels of cooperation from those people, but again, I don't know how many people they have on site. It's congested now. If you change it for just a bus pickup duration, you just may be contributing to the congestion and the safety there on that block. I know these are preschool age children there, so that's of concern. But even if a bus, in my opinion, were to stop in the street with the stop arm or school bus stop signage, I mean, drop off and pick up, I think would be pretty unobtrusive to the flow over there.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on this? Okay,
So, can you do just no parking for that particular window? Like some no parking is just from this time period to this time period. Like, so could it be like, yeah,
Yeah.
like, is it possible to
Time restricted.
time restricted no parking?
so I
that
think
it's-
the timing on the signage right now is Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But the thought is that's too broad. Is that right? We should just be considering limiting it to the hours that the drop off is actually occurring during.
Or if you allowed overnight parking, there's no children there. If that
Okay.
structure is gonna have residents or staff, so you don't lose those spots there.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's currently their 15-minute parking signage is only in effect
So-
weekdays, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
So what's the difference whether they park on the street or off the street? The bars are still gonna be out when they're loading and unloading.
I think that, and I would have to follow up with the applicant, but I think that their preference and what they're trying to accomplish is to be able to pull right up to the curb.
But the stop bars are still gonna be out when
Yeah.
they're loading and unloading.
None of the buses want the kids to cross in between cars to get off the bus and go in between the cars.
Going between the parked cars.
Yes. You never know if somebody's in the car and gonna move and.
You
Yeah,
know,
you
when I
have
come
to-
down Susquehanna Street, they pull over to the curb, but the stop bars are out.
Yeah, I think they're trying to get as close to the curb as possible. So basically, without the cars being parked there, the kids are just stepping off the bus onto the sidewalk. That's my understanding of the request.
Can we do a one bus parking space?
Yeah, I think that they have some signage there already that was, I think, put up privately. But I think what we can do is I can follow up with the applicant after this meeting and get a better sense of that. That's my understanding or my best guess at what they're trying to accomplish. I can invite them to the next meeting too if they prefer. I can just pass on their feedback so the board has a better understanding of what the issues they're dealing with are. And if there's maybe a better way to limit this, so it achieves that purpose without kind of having a broader effect on the parking there. So if agreeable, we could table this to the December meeting so that we can kind of do that additional outreach.
I would specifically like clarification if their intent is to just eliminate the parking for the children not to go in the parked cars. I don't know that that's reasonable. They can load and unload and drop at a curb cut or a safer location. If they're still stopping in the street, it doesn't open. You can't pass the bus, and then why eliminate the parking spots? Because it's deemed more convenient for the driver to stop there by parked cars versus a better, safer location on the block. Again, I know they're small children. I think they're escorted on and off the bus there.
Okay, let me follow with the applicant on those questions and hopefully we can get clarity for December. Is there a motion to table?
Motion.
Second,
Second,
all those in favor?
I
Any opposed? Okay, all right, that's the end of the traffic board determinations portion of the meeting. Any other business or any other items from board members or anyone else here?
Thank you to everyone who came out. Thank you for staying. Yep.
Yeah, thank you for coming out and to your neighbors too. Okay, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
There a second?
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.